I stood in front of my childhood home, clutching a bottle of wine that cost more than I could afford, watching my brother Bryson pull up in his shiny new Tesla. Even from here, I could see Mum's face light up through the window. Some things never change. I'm Reagan, and I've spent 28 years being the family's runner-up. Tonight's gathering would be different, though. I had a plan that would finally make them see me. "Reagan, you're early," Mum called from the porch, but her eyes were fixed on Bryson as he strutted up the driveway. "Bryson, honey, is that a new suit?" "Custom made," he replied with that trademark smirk. "Closed that Peterson deal last week." "Oh, wonderful!" Mom clapped her hands together. "Your father will be thrilled. Come in, come in." I followed them inside, my presence barely registering. The house smelled like Mom's famous pot roast, the one she only made for Bryson's achievements. I'd gotten straight A's through college, landed a decent job at a non-profit, and even published a children's book, but I was still waiting for that pot roast. "Lauren's running late," I announced to no one in particular. My cousin was the only one who truly got it, who saw through the facade of our perfect family dynamic. Dad emerged from his study, newspaper tucked under his arm. "Bryson, my boy, how's the market treating you?" "Can't complain, Dad. Just bought some property downtown. Investment opportunity was too good to pass up." "That's my son," Dad beamed, finally noticing me. "Oh, Reagan, nice of you to join us. Still at that charity place?" "Non-profit," I corrected. "We just secured a major grant for—" "Bryson, tell your father about the Peterson deal," Mum interrupted, ushering everyone to the dining room. I took my usual seat, the wobbly chair with the slightly lower height that made me feel like a kid at the adults' table. The conversation swirled around Bryson's latest triumph, while I pushed peas around my plate. "Remember when Bryson won the state championships?" Mom gushed, passing the breadbasket. "Such a proud moment." "Mum, that was 15 years ago," I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "And still one of the best days of our lives," Dad added. "The way he turned that game around in the final quarter." I gripped my fork tighter. "I got an award last month for my work with underprivileged kids." "That's nice, dear," Mom said absently. "Bryson, are you seeing anyone? That lovely girl from your office, perhaps?" The doorbell rang, saving me from another story about Bryson's dating life. Lauren burst in, her presence immediately lightening the atmosphere. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was insane." She hugged me tight, whispering, "You okay?" I nodded, but we both knew it was a lie. "Lauren," Bryson stood up. "You remember Xander from high school? He's moving back to town next week." Lauren's eyes widened slightly. She knew something I didn't. But before I could ask, Mum was already launching into another Bryson story. "Did Reagan ever tell you about the time Bryson saved our family vacation?" Mom asked Lauren. "We were in Florida and the rental car broke down." "Actually," Lauren interrupted, "I'd love to hear about Reagan's new book. My niece can't stop talking about it." The silence that followed was deafening. "Reagan wrote a book." Dad looked genuinely surprised. "I told you about it 3 months ago," I said quietly. "At Christmas. I gave you both signed copies." Mom had the decency to look embarrassed. "Oh, yes, of course, the little animal story." "It's about a young girl finding her voice," Lauren supplied. "It's been nominated for the Children's Choice Book Award." "Well, speaking of achievements," Bryson cut in, "the Peterson deal is projected to bring in 7 figures by quarter's end." And just like that, the spotlight swung back to its favourite target. I caught Lauren's eye across the table and something in me snapped. The lottery ticket in my purse suddenly felt heavy. The cornerstone of my plan. Tomorrow, the local news would report a $100 million jackpot winner. Tomorrow, I'd casually mention checking my numbers. Tomorrow, everything would change. "More wine, anyone?" I offered, standing up. My hand shook slightly as I poured, but nobody noticed. They never did. Lauren squeezed my arm as I passed her. She knew what was coming. After all, she'd helped me set it up. I looked around the table at my picture-perfect family. Mom straightening Bryson's already straight tie, Dad hanging on his every word, and me, invisible as always. But not for long. For once, I couldn't wait for tomorrow's family dinner. Are you absolutely sure about this? Lauren paced around my apartment, clutching the fake lottery ticket we'd spent weeks perfecting. Once we do this, there's no going back. I adjusted the printer settings, carefully aligning the paper. Did you see them last night? Dad couldn't even remember I wrote a book. I know, but... And Mom? She's probably already planning Bryson's next celebration dinner. I held up the freshly printed check, examining it under the light. The detail work is perfect. Lauren flopped onto my couch. Walk me through the plan again. Simple. The winning numbers were announced last night. Today I discover I won. We've got the fake ticket, the doctored bank statement, and that check you helped create. I smiled. Your graphic design skills really came in handy. Still can't believe I let you talk me into this. Lauren grabbed her phone. Okay, the news websites are all reporting about the mysterious winner. No one's claimed it yet. My phone buzzed. Mom. Reagan, honey, are you coming to dinner tonight? Bryson's bringing Xander. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Need me to bring anything? No, dear, just yourself. A pause. And maybe wear something nice? Xander's single, you know. I ended the call, my hands shaking. They're trying to set me up with Bryson's best friend now. Lauren's expression darkened. Xander, that's complicated. What do you mean? Nothing. She stood up abruptly. Let's focus on tonight. You need to act natural when you check those numbers. Don't oversell it. We spent the next hour rehearsing my reaction, making sure it wasn't too dramatic or too understated. Lauren played my parents, throwing in perfectly mimicked versions of their Bryson-centric responses. One last thing, Lauren said, heading for the door. What happens when they find out? I straightened my shoulders. They learn how it feels to be disappointed. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than usual. The fake ticket sat in my purse like a ticking bomb. I'd chosen a simple black dress, the one Mom always said would look better on someone with Bryson's girlfriend's figure. Xander's car was already parked outside when I arrived. Great. Reagan! Xander greeted me with a hug that lasted a beat too long. You look amazing. Thanks, I mumbled, moving past him into the house. The kitchen was chaos. Mum fluttered around, adding garnishes to dishes that definitely weren't pot roast. Reagan, you're late, she chided. Bryson and Xander have been here for ages. Traffic, I lied, setting my purse on the counter. The lottery ticket peeked out slightly, phase 1 of the plan. Dad wandered in, newspaper in hand. Did you hear about that lottery winner? No one's claimed it yet. $100 million, just sitting there. My heart raced. This was almost too perfect. Oh, I reached for my purse. When was the drawing? Last night, Bryson called from the dining room. But don't get excited. Odds are like 1 in 300 million. I pulled out my ticket, making sure Mom saw it. I bought one last week. Haven't checked the numbers yet. Well, check them now, Xander suggested, suddenly interested. The numbers are right here in the paper. My hands trembled. For real this time. Even knowing it was fake, this moment was intense. Let's see. I read slowly. 4, 16, 32. Mom had stopped cooking. Dad lowered his paper. Even Bryson appeared in the doorway. 47, 53, and... I swallowed hard. 29. The silence was deafening. Those... Dad's voice cracked. Those are the winning numbers. I looked up, eyes wide. What? Oh my God, Mom whispered, snatching the ticket. Oh my God. No way, Bryson pushed forward. Let me see that. I watched their faces transform. Mom's hands shook as she compared the numbers again and again. Dad's mouth hung open. Bryson's usual smugness cracked. Our little Reagan, Mom breathed. A millionaire? 100 millionaire, Xander corrected, looking impressed. I need to sit down, I stammered, playing my part perfectly. Sweetheart, Mom rushed to my side, suddenly attentive. This is wonderful. We must celebrate. I'll get the champagne. Dad announced. "The good stuff." Bryson stood frozen, his expression unreadable. "Congratulations, sis." His tone made my skin crawl, but I smiled anyway. "Thanks, Bryson." As my parents rushed around making calls and plans, I caught Xander studying me intently. Something in his eyes made me nervous, like he knew more than he was letting on. Lauren's words echoed in my head. "Once we do this, there's no going back." Looking at my family's transformed behaviour, I realised she was right. There was no going back now, and somehow that thought was both terrifying and thrilling. The champagne flowed freely as Mom transformed our regular family dinner into an impromptu celebration. She'd already called half the neighbourhood, and the house was quickly filling with close family friends I hadn't seen in years. "To Reagan!" Dad raised his third glass. "Who would have thought our little girl would be the one to strike it rich?" "Who would have thought indeed," Bryson muttered, nursing his drink in the corner. Mom fluttered around me like a hummingbird, touching my hair, straightening my dress. "Honey, we should talk about investment strategies. Your brother has excellent connections." "Actually," I cut in, "I've already got plans for the money." The room fell silent. Even the neighbours stopped their excited chatter. "Plans?" Dad's smile faltered. "What kind of plans?" "Well, first, I'm expanding my children's literacy program." I took a sip of champagne, savouring their reactions. "You know, the one I've been running at the non-profit." "But, sweetie," Mum touched my arm, "surely Bryson could help you make that money grow. He's got such a head for business." "I'm also buying a house," I continued, "for myself, in the city." "The city?" Dad sputtered. "But that's so dangerous. You could live here. We've got plenty of room, and I think it's great," Xander spoke up unexpectedly. "Reagan's clearly thought this through." Bryson shot his friend a look that could freeze hell. "Speaking of thinking things through," Mom brightened, "we should discuss family allocations. Your father and I have always wanted to renovate the kitchen, and Bryson's been eyeing this wonderful investment property." "Mum," I set down my glass, "I haven't even claimed the ticket yet." "Oh, of course, she laughed nervously. "When will you do that?" "Tomorrow morning," I lied. "The lottery office opens at 9. "I'll come with you," Bryson volunteered too quickly. "You'll need someone who understands financial matters." "I've got it handled," I said firmly. "Lauren's coming with me." "Lauren?" Mum frowned. "But she's just a graphic designer." The irony almost made me laugh. Just then the doorbell rang. Lauren walked in, taking in the crowded room with raised eyebrows. "Congratulations," she hugged me, whispering, "Holding up okay?" Before I could answer, Mom whisked her away. "Lauren, dear, talk some sense into your cousin. She's thinking of managing the money herself instead of letting Bryson help." "Really?" Lauren's eyes sparkled. "How interesting." Xander appeared at my elbow. "Can we talk privately?" Something in his tone made my stomach drop. I followed him to the back porch, away from the noise. "Nice performance in there," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" He leaned against the railing. "Come on, Reagan. The convenient timing, the perfectly visible ticket, the rehearsed reaction." He smiled. "I've known you since high school. You're good, but you're not that good." My heart hammered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." He moved closer. "Question is, what's your endgame?" "Xander. Because if it's about exposing family dynamics," he continued, "I might have some information you'd find interesting. About Bryson." Before I could respond, Mum's voice carried through the door. "Reagan, the news is here." "The news?" I froze. "I might have called them," Mum beamed, pulling me inside. "They're doing a story on our local lottery winner." Horror washed over me. A reporter stood in our living room, camera crew in tow. "Ms. Owens," the reporter thrust a microphone at me, "how does it feel to be $100 million richer?" She's still processing," Mom jumped in. "We all are. But we're so proud. Reagan's always been such a special girl. Dad appeared with more champagne. My daughter, the millionaire. Who would have guessed? And what are your plans for the money? The reporter pressed. She's going into business with her brother, Mom announced confidently. Actually, I found my voice, I'm focusing on charitable work, children's literacy. The reporter's eyes lit up. How admirable! Would you say this charitable spirit runs in the family? Oh, yes. Bryson stepped forward. Our family's always been about giving back. In fact, really? The words escaped before I could stop them. Name one charity event you've attended that wasn't a networking opportunity. Uncomfortable silence fell. The reporter looked delighted at the hint of family drama. Perhaps we should wrap this up, Dad suggested quickly. As the news crew packed up, Xander caught my eye and mouthed, Careful! Lauren squeezed my hand. Maybe we should go. But we haven't discussed the family trust, Mom protested. Tomorrow, I promised, gathering my things. After I claimed the ticket, walking to my car, I heard Bryson tell Xander, Something's not right, and I'm going to figure out what it is. Lauren overheard too. This is getting complicated. No, I replied, watching my family through the window, already planning how to spend my non-existent millions. This is getting interesting. The next morning my phone exploded with notifications. Mom had texted 17 times, Dad called twice, and Bryson left a voicemail about urgent investment opportunities. Even my dentist reached out to congratulate me. Your segment's gone viral, Lauren announced, barging into my apartment. She held up her phone, showing a local news clip. Local children's author wins mega millions. Great, I groaned. More complications. My phone buzzed again. Mom. Darling, we've set up a family brunch to discuss everything. The country club at 11. We've invited some financial advisors. Mum, I told you I'm handling this myself. But, sweetheart, her voice turned syrupy sweet, you've never been good with money. Remember that bounce check in college? I was 18, Mum, and that was because you and Dad forgot to transfer my allowance. Again, because Bryson needed new golf clubs. Silence. Then, just come to brunch, dear, please. I agreed, if only to maintain the charade. Lauren insisted on coming along. The country club was packed. Apparently, news of my win had spread through the entire membership. Mum had reserved the main dining room, which was decorated with actual congratulatory balloons. Kill me now, I muttered to Lauren. Patience, she whispered back. The best part's coming. Dad waved us over to a table where he sat with Bryson and 3 men in expensive suits. Reagan, these gentlemen are very interested in helping you manage your windfall. Actually, I smiled sweetly, I've already spoken with my own financial advisor. You have? Bryson's fork clattered against his plate. She specialises in charitable trusts and non-profit organisations. Mum nearly choked on her mimosa. But surely Bryson's connections. Mum, I cut in, when was the last time you asked about my work? What do you mean? My actual work? At the non-profit, where I've been for 6 years, she blinked. Well, you help children, don't you? I run literacy programs in underfunded schools. I've helped secure grants worth millions. I've managed budgets, led teams, and last month I was nominated for a national award. I leaned forward. But you didn't know any of that, did you? The financial advisors shifted uncomfortably. Now, Reagan, Dad started, but I wasn't finished. Did you know I paid off my student loans last year without help, or that my book is being translated into 3 languages? This isn't the time, Bryson tried to interrupt. When is the time, when I'm not stealing your spotlight? The room had gone quiet. Other members were openly staring now. I think, one of the advisors stood up, we should reschedule. As they left, Xander appeared, sliding into an empty chair. Did I miss the fireworks? Xander, Mom brightened. Talk to Reagan. She's being unreasonable about the money. Is she? He He raised an eyebrow. Seems to me she's being pretty smart, careful, methodical. He emphasized each word while looking directly at me. Lauren kicked me under the table. Speaking of careful, Bryson said, shouldn't you be at the lottery office by now? Oh, I went early, I lied smoothly. They're processing everything. Could take a few days. Really? He pulled out his phone. Because I called them this morning and they said no one's claimed the ticket yet. The table fell silent. You called to check up on me? I asked, heart pounding. Just looking out for my baby sister. Like you looked out for me during the Thompson account. Xander's question came out of nowhere. Bryson's face went white. That's ancient history. What Thompson account? Dad asked. Nothing, Bryson snapped. Doesn't sound like nothing, I pressed, catching Xander's eye. Reagan, Mom interrupted desperately. Tell us more about your plans for the money. We could renovate your old room, make it a proper guest suite. Actually, I stood up, I should go. Lots of paperwork to handle. I'll walk you out, Xander offered. Outside, he grabbed my arm. Be careful. Bryson's suspicious and he's got resources. Why are you helping me? He glanced back at the club. Let's just say I know what it's like to live in Bryson's shadow, and that Thompson account, it's just the tip of the iceberg. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mum. Darling, we're having a family dinner tonight. Non-negotiable. Bring your lottery paperwork. Perfect, Lauren said, reading over my shoulder. Time for phase 2. I watched through the window as Bryson argued with my parents, his face red with frustration. Time for phase 2. You know, Xander said quietly, sometimes the best revenge isn't exposing someone's lies. It's forcing them to face the truth. As we walked to our cars, I couldn't help wondering whose truth would come out first, mine or Bryson's. I spent the afternoon with Lauren preparing for dinner. We'd created fake lottery claim documents that would hold up to casual inspection, but Bryson's earlier suspicion had me worried. What did Xander mean about the Thompson account? Lauren asked, adjusting the printer settings. Before I could answer, my doorbell rang. Speaking of the devil. Xander, I opened the door. What are you doing here? He held up a thick folder. Thought you might want some ammunition for tonight. Lauren eyed him suspiciously. Why are you really helping? Because, he dropped the folder on my coffee table. 3 years ago, Bryson stole my biggest account and claimed credit for my work. The Thompson deal, that was mine. I opened the folder. Inside were emails, contracts and meeting notes, all with Xander's name crossed out and Bryson's written in. He forged documents, I whispered, and signatures. Xander's jaw tightened. Cost me my promotion and nearly my career. Your brother's not as golden as everyone thinks. Why didn't you expose him? Lauren asked. He threatened to reveal some personal information about my family. I backed down. He looked at me. But now, maybe it's time for the truth. My phone buzzed. A text from Ella, my mum's oldest friend. Need to talk before dinner. Important. What now? I groaned. Go, Lauren said. I'll finish the documents. 20 minutes later, I sat in Ella's living room, clutching a cup of tea I didn't want. I saw the news about your lottery win, she started. Ella, let me finish. She set down her cup. Your mother called me, going on about family trusts and renovations. It reminded me of something I should have told you years ago. She pulled out an old photo album. Your father had a brother. What? No, he didn't. He did. Thomas, they had a falling out before you were born, over money. She showed me a faded photograph of 2 young men. Your grandfather left everything to Thomas, you see. Your father was, well, less responsible back then. What happened? Thomas died in an accident. The inheritance went to your father after all. She hesitated. But there were rumours about the accident. My hands shook. Are you saying... I'm saying money changes people, Reagan, and your father. He changed a lot after Thomas died. The implications made my stomach turn. Why tell me this now? Because history has a way of repeating. She touched my hand. Be careful with this lottery business. I've watched your parents favour Bryson all these years, seen how it hurt you. But maybe their favouritism was their way of making up for past sins. My phone buzzed again. Mom, dinner in an hour. Bring the paperwork. Back at my apartment, Lauren and Xander had finished the documents. Everything okay? Lauren asked, noting my expression. No. I showed them the photo. Apparently my family's history with money is darker than I thought. As I recounted Ella's story, Xander's expression grew serious. Reagan, maybe we should stop this. No. I gathered the fake documents. I need to know the truth. All of it. We arrived at my parents' house to find Bryson's car already there. Through the window I could see him showing something to Dad on his laptop. Ready? Lauren squeezed my hand. Wait. Xander pulled out his phone. One last thing you should see. He pulled up an email chain. The most recent message was from Bryson to the Lottery Commission, dated this morning. He's trying to verify your ticket, Xander explained. He's got friends there. Then we better make this count, I said, straightening my shoulders. Inside, Mom had outdone herself. The dining room looked like a celebration venue, complete with champagne and her famous pot roast. The prodigal millionaire returns, Dad called out, but his smile seemed strained. Bryson barely looked up from his laptop. Bring the paperwork. Right here, I patted my bag. But first, I'd love to hear about the Thompson account. The room went silent. Bryson's head snapped up. Or maybe, I continued, sitting down, we could talk about Uncle Thomas. Dad's glass crashed to the floor. Mum turned white. Who told you about Thomas? Dad demanded. Does it matter? I pulled out Xander's folder, just like it doesn't matter who told me about Bryson's creative accounting. Now, wait just a minute, Bryson started. No, you wait. I laid out the documents. I think it's time we all told the truth, don't you? The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, thunder rolled, a perfect backdrop for the storm that was about to break. Well, Mum said shakily, reaching for the champagne, I suppose we have a lot to discuss. Yes, I agreed, watching my father stare at his brother's photograph. We certainly do. That's not Thomas, Dad said, but his trembling hands betrayed him. Where did you get this? Ella had quite a collection of old photos, I replied, watching his face, and quite a few stories. Ella needs to mind her own business, Mom snapped, pouring herself more champagne. Bryson tried to redirect. We're here to discuss Reagan's lottery win. No, I cut him off. We're here to discuss truth, like how you stole Xander's work on the Thompson account. That's ridiculous, he scoffed, but his eyes darted to Xander. Oh, is it? Xander spread out the evidence. These are copies of the original documents, before you altered them. Mom jumped in. Bryson would never... Actually, Lauren interrupted, he would, and did, multiple times, according to these emails. Thunder crashed outside as Dad finally found his voice. Thomas was complicated. Was he? I leaned forward. Or was the inheritance complicated? You don't understand, Dad's voice cracked. I had nothing when Thomas died. Nothing. The accident was... Norman. Mom's warning came too late. The accident, I pressed. You mean the one that happened right after Grandpa changed his will? Bryson looked between our parents, confusion spreading across his face. What accident? It doesn't matter, Mom stood abruptly. That was 30 years ago. We're here to discuss Reagan's future. My future, I laughed, like you discussed Bryson's future when you helped him cover up his fraud. That's enough, Bryson slammed his hand on the table. You're just jealous because I'm successful. Successful? Xander stood up. You're successful because you steal other people's work, just like you stole mine. You can't prove anything. Actually, Lauren pulled out her phone. These email timestamps prove everything, including when you altered the documents. The pot roast grew cold as her accusations flew. Mum kept refilling her glass. Dad stared at Thomas's photo. Bryson's face grew redder with each revealed detail. "Fine," he finally exploded. "I took credit for Xander's work. Is that what you want to hear? But I'm not the only one with secrets, am I, Dad?" Dad's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "I found the old police report," Bryson said quietly, "about Uncle Thomas's brake lines." The room went deadly silent. Lightning illuminated Mom's horrified face. "I was protecting our family," Dad whispered. "Thomas was going to donate everything to charity, everything our parents built." "Norman, please," Mom begged. "Not now." "Yes, now," I insisted. "For once, let's have the whole truth." "The truth?" Dad laughed bitterly. "The truth is, I made sure my children would never want for anything. Everything I did was for you." "No," I stood up. "Everything you did was for Bryson, the golden child, the successful son, even when you knew his success was built on lies." "At least I built something," Bryson shot back. "What have you done? Work at a non-profit, write children's books, and now this lottery scam." The words hung in the air. "Scam?" Mom's voice was small. "What scam?" Lauren touched my arm. "Reagan. But I was done hiding." "You want the truth, Mom? Here's the truth. There is no lottery win. I faked it. All of it." "But the ticket, the news," Dad stammered. "I wanted you to see how quickly your love could be bought," I said, pulling out the fake ticket. "How fast you'd change when you thought I was worth something." "Worth something?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. "You're our daughter." "Am I?" "Because for 28 years I've been nothing but Bryson's shadow. Even when you knew he was lying, cheating, stealing, you still loved him more." "That's not true," Dad protested weakly. "Really?" I pulled out my phone. "Should we call Ella? Ask her about all the times you missed my events for Bryson's? Or how about we call your old business partner, the one who warned you about Bryson's creative accounting?" The silence was deafening. "Well," Bryson stood up, straightening his tie, "I guess we're all disappointed in each other." "Sit down," Xander commanded. "We're not finished." "Oh, I think we are." Bryson grabbed his laptop. "Good luck explaining your fake lottery win to the press, sis." "Better than explaining fraud to the SEC," Lauren countered, holding up a USB drive. "Everything's backed up here. Every document, every altered contract." Mum started crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years. "So," I said, gathering my things, "what happens now is up to you. We can all agree to face our truths, or what?" Dad asked hoarsely. "Or we can let everyone else face them for us." The storm outside had reached its peak, but the real tempest was just beginning inside the Owens family home. The silence stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. Mom had stopped crying, her makeup streaked across her face. Dad kept opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water. Bryson stood frozen, his hand still on his laptop. "You're bluffing," he finally said. "Try me." I nodded to Xander, who pulled out his phone. "One call to the SEC, Xander said. "That's all it takes." "You wouldn't," Bryson's voice cracked. "They'll investigate everything, everyone." "Including Dad's old records?" I asked innocently. "The ones about Uncle Thomas?" "Stop it!" Mom slammed her hand on the table. "Just stop it! We're a family." "Are we?" I turned to her. "Because families don't do this to each other. They don't cover up crimes or ignore their children or—" "I never ignored you," she protested. "Really?" Lauren pulled out her phone. "Let's review. Reagan's college graduation. You left early for Bryson's work dinner. Her book launch. You didn't show up because Bryson had a golf tournament. Her non-profit's biggest fundraiser. You were too busy helping Bryson shop for a new car." "That's different," Mom whispered. "Bryson needed—" "What about what I needed?" My voice broke. "What about all the times I needed my mother?" Dad finally spoke up. "Thomas, he was going to destroy everything. The family business, our reputation. So you destroyed him instead? The words hung in the air like poison. It wasn't... I didn't mean... Dad collapsed into his chair. The brake lines were already worn. I just didn't warn him. Bryson went pale. You killed him. I protected us, Dad shouted, like I protected you when those contracts were questioned, like your mother protected you when the Thompson deal was investigated. Protected him? Xander stepped forward. You enabled him, and now he's just like you, willing to destroy others to get ahead. The doorbell rang, making everyone jump. Expecting someone? I asked as Mom went to answer it. She returned with Ella, who took in the scene with knowing eyes. I thought I might be needed, she said quietly. You've done enough, Mom snapped. No, Ella's voice was firm. I've done too little. I watched for years as you twisted this family into something ugly. I should have spoken up sooner. About what? Bryson demanded. About everything. The accident that wasn't an accident. The cover-ups. The way they treated Reagan. We gave her everything, Mom protested. Except love, Ella said simply. Except acceptance. The truth of those words seemed to physically hit my mother. She staggered back. I loved you, she whispered to me. Bryson needed what? I asked. Permission to become this. I gestured to the evidence spread across the table. Permission to cheat and steal because Dad did worse? I did what I had to do. Dad's fist hit the table. No, I stood up. You did what was easy, what was convenient. And now? I pulled out my phone and dialed a number on speaker. Securities and Exchange Commission. How may I direct your call? Bryson lunged for the phone, but Xander caught him. My name is Reagan, I said clearly, watching my family's faces. I'd like to report multiple instances of securities fraud. Reagan, please, Mom begged. I have documentation, I continued, of altered contracts, forged signatures, and stolen accounts. Don't do this, Bryson's voice shook. I looked at my father, who sat defeated in his chair. At my mother, whose perfectly maintained facade had crumbled completely. At my brother, who finally looked scared instead of superior. I took a deep breath, have information about a 30-year-old accident that wasn't an accident. Dad put his head in his hands. Please hold while I transfer you, the voice said. I ended the call. That's it? Bryson asked. You're really destroying this family? No, I said quietly. You all did that yourselves. I'm just turning on the lights. What do you want? Mom whispered. I want the truth. All of it. No more lies, no more cover-ups. I looked at each of them. And then I want you to make it right. How? Dad asked hoarsely. Confess, make amends, face the consequences. I turned to Bryson, starting with the Thompson account. The room was silent except for the fading storm outside. Okay, Bryson finally said, his shoulders slumping. Okay. Norman, Ella spoke softly, it's time to talk about Thomas. Dad nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. And Mom, I touched her hand, it's time to see me, really see me. She gripped my fingers, nodding through her tears. The truth was out now, ugly and raw. But maybe, just maybe, something real could grow from these ruins. I'll make the calls, Xander said quietly. Start the process. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving behind that peculiar clarity that comes after rain. It was time to rebuild. The morning sun streamed through the windows of my non-profit's new office space as I unpacked another box of children's books. The sound of construction next door, where Bryson's old investment firm used to be, seemed fitting somehow. Need help with those? Lauren appeared in the doorway, holding coffee. Thanks. I took a cup. Did you see the news? About Bryson's community service or about your dad's testimony? Both. I pulled out my phone, showing her the headline. Local executive admits fraud, pledges restitution to victims. How's he doing? Lauren asked. Bryson, I mean. Better, actually. Teaching financial literacy at the youth centre was supposed to be punishment, but I smiled. He's good at it when he's not trying to prove something. The door chimed as Mum walked in, carrying a familiar casserole dish. I made pot roast, she announced, for your office warming. Mum, you didn't have to... Yes, I did. She set it down. I've missed too many of your moments. I'm not missing this one. Lauren tactfully disappeared as Mom looked around the office, taking in the literacy program posters and the wall of thank you letters from kids. This is really something, Reagan. Her voice was soft. You've built all this yourself. Well, the settlement money from Bryson's firm helped with the expansion. Still, she touched a child's drawing, you're doing real good here. Not just looking good like we always... She trailed off. Thanks, Mom. The door chimed again. Dad walked in, looking older but somehow lighter. The prosecutor called, he said without preamble. They're closing Thomas's case. With my testimony and the evidence, they're satisfied justice has been served. How do you feel? I asked. Free. He looked around. This place, it reminds me of Thomas. He always wanted to help people. Maybe that's why we... He swallowed hard. Dad, you don't have to... Yes, I do. He straightened up. I spent 30 years running from the truth. No more. Xander appeared in the doorway, followed by Bryson in casual clothes, a far cry from his usual suits. The kids are asking when you're coming back, Bryson told me. Apparently my financial literacy lessons aren't as fun as your storytelling. Tomorrow, I promised. We're doing a joint session, remember? Teaching them about money through stories. Right, he shuffled awkwardly. Listen, Xander and I were talking. What if we set up a scholarship, in Thomas's name, for kids who want to work in non-profits? Mum gasped softly. Dad's eyes filled with tears. That would be perfect, I managed. I can help structure it, Xander offered. Legally this time. A group of kids rushed past the window, heading to the youth centre next door. Through the wall we could hear their laughter. I never understood before, Bryson said quietly, why you chose this work. But seeing those kids' faces when they master something new, better than any investment return, right? I smiled. Different kind of profit. He actually smiled back. Ella arrived last, carrying a familiar photo album. Found more pictures of Thomas, she announced. Thought you might want them for the scholarship program. As we gathered around the album, I noticed how naturally we fell into place. No hierarchy, no competition, just family looking at old photos. He would have been proud of this, Dad said, touching a picture of young Thomas teaching kids to read. Of what you've built here, Reagan. What we're building, I corrected. Together. Mum wiped her eyes. I always thought success meant money, status. I was so wrong. We all were, Bryson admitted, but we're learning. Through the window, I could see my newest literacy program poster being hung. Every story matters. Below it, a smaller sign announced, Thomas Memorial Scholarship Fund, Building Futures Through Education. You know, Lauren said, this is better than any lottery win. Way better, I agreed. This is real. The door chimed again as my first group of students arrived for afternoon reading sessions. They crowded in, excited to meet the adults they'd heard so much about. Is it true? One little girl asked Bryson. You're going to help us learn about money? And my dad's going to share business stories, I added. Mum's starting a parent reading group. We're all part of this now. Can we start today? Another kid asked eagerly. I looked at my family, all of them, broken and healing and trying, and saw nothing but nods. Yes, I said. We can start today. As we gathered the kids for story time, I realised that sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing, but about finding your truth and having the courage to live it, and that's worth more than any lottery ticket could ever buy.